The Tokyo Incident. In the bustling streets of Tokyo, a man named Taro found himself living among the homeless community. He had been there for quite some time now, ever since he lost his job and couldn't afford to pay rent anymore. Life on the streets was tough, but Taro managed to survive by doing odd jobs here and there, collecting discarded food from restaurants, and occasionally begging for change. Taro wasn't alone in this struggle. Many others like him inhabited these same streets. They formed a tight-knit community where they looked out for one another, shared whatever resources they had, and tried to make the best of their situation. Despite their hardships, there was always laughter and camaraderie among them. It was all they had left in this cold world. Taro's days were spent wandering around the city, trying his luck at various places. He would sometimes sit by a busy intersection, holding up a handwritten sign that read, "Please help." Occasionally, kind-hearted passers-by would drop some coins into his cup or offer him food from nearby eateries. These small acts of kindness kept Taro going, reminding him that not everyone was heartless in the city. At night, the homeless community gathered around a makeshift fire pit on an abandoned lot near the riverbank. They shared stories about their lives before they ended up here, tales of lost jobs, failed relationships, and broken dreams. As the flames danced to the rhythm of the wind, Taro listened intently, feeling less alone in his misery. Despite the harsh realities of life on the streets, there was a sense of unity among them that kept their spirits high. They were all fighting against the same adversary, poverty and social inequality, and together they hoped to one day rise above it all. One day, as Taro wandered through the city in search of food and shelter, he found himself in an unfamiliar part of town. He was about to turn back when he heard a faint cry for help coming from an alleyway. Curiosity piqued, Taro cautiously approached the source of the sound. There, huddled against the wall, was another homeless man, younger than most and visibly injured. His clothes were tattered, and his face bore the marks of a recent altercation. As Taro drew closer, he realized that this stranger needed help. His injuries looked severe, and there wasn't anyone else around to assist him. Without hesitation, Taro offered what little first aid knowledge he had acquired during his time on the streets. He cleaned the wounds as best he could with water from a nearby fountain and applied pressure to stop any bleeding. The young man winced in pain but seemed grateful for Taro's help nonetheless. As they sat there leaning against the cold brick wall, the injured man introduced himself as Shinji. He explained that he had been mugged earlier by a group of thugs who took everything he owned. Even his shoes were gone. The two men exchanged stories about their lives and struggles, finding solace in each other's company amidst the chaos around them. As night fell, Shinji insisted on sharing whatever food he had with Taro. It wasn't much, just a stale piece of bread and some moldy cheese, but it was enough to keep their spirits up for now. They vowed to look out for one another in this harsh world where kindness seemed scarce. However, as the days passed, tensions between Taro and Shinji began to rise. The younger man's injuries healed slowly, leaving him weak and unable to contribute much to their shared existence. This led to frequent arguments over resources and living space within their makeshift shelter. One fateful evening, after another heated exchange, Taro lost his temper and struck Shinji across the face. The blow was not hard enough to cause serious harm, but it was enough to shatter the fragile bond they had forged earlier. As tears welled up in Shinji's eyes, he retreated into a nearby alleyway, vowing never to speak to Taro again. In the days that followed, Taro felt a deep sense of regret for his actions. He knew that violence was not the answer and that he had let anger cloud his judgment. But it was too late. Shinji had already moved on, seeking refuge with another group of homeless individuals who took him in without question. Taro's life continued as before, wandering through the city, begging for scraps of food and trying to survive one more day at a time. But now, he carried the weight of his actions upon his shoulders, knowing that he had lost not only a friend but also a chance to learn from someone who had faced adversity head-on with courage and resilience. As night fell over Tokyo once again, Taro sat alone by their makeshift fire pit, watching as the flames danced and flickered in the darkness. He wondered if he would ever find true friendship among his fellow homeless individuals, or if this fateful encounter had doomed him to a life of isolation and despair. Days turned into weeks, and Taro's life continued its monotonous cycle of survival. He had given up hope on finding true friendship or a way out of his situation. It seemed as though he was destined to wander these streets forever. One particularly cold evening, after a long day spent shivering under the weight of an overcoat that wasn't quite enough, Taro decided to seek refuge in one of Tokyo's less crowded areas. He hoped that by avoiding the main thoroughfares, he might be able to find some peace and quiet for the night. As he walked through narrow alleys and side streets, his eyes scanned the ground for any signs of discarded food or useful items left behind by careless passers-by. It was during the search that Taro stumbled upon something completely unexpected, an alien creature unlike anything he had ever seen before. The being itself appeared to be made up of shimmering silver mist with a humanoid form, and its eyes glowed softly in the dim light around it. The most astonishing feature, however, was the small crystal-like object hovering just above its head, emitting a faint hum that seemed almost musical. Taro's initial shock quickly turned into curiosity as he cautiously approached the alien being. He had heard stories of supernatural creatures and mythical beings from fellow homeless individuals who claimed to have encountered them in their own journeys through life. But Taro never believed such tales until now. What are you?" Taro asked hesitantly, trying not to startle the creature further. The alien's response was gentle yet mysterious. It spoke with a voice that felt like it resonated deep within Taro's soul. "I am Eri, an explorer from another world. I have been observing your planet for some time now and find its inhabitants quite fascinating." Taro stared at this extraterrestrial being in disbelief. He couldn't fathom the reality of his situation, but as he looked into those glowing eyes, something about them felt strangely familiar. "Why are you here?" Taro finally managed to ask, trying not to reveal too much of himself just yet. "I have been sent to learn from your species," Eri replied softly. "I chose this particular place because I sensed a great deal of suffering and resilience among those who live on these streets." Taro's heart swelled with conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted nothing more than to trust this alien being, while another part urged caution and doubt. As the night wore on, Taro found himself drawn into Eri's presence like a moth to a flame. He shared his story, revealing all that he had endured since losing his job and becoming homeless. In return, Eri spoke of its own world, one filled with advanced technology and knowledge beyond human comprehension. The connection between them grew stronger as they conversed. Taro felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in years, and though it was strange to think about, there was something comforting knowing that an alien being understood his struggles better than most humans ever could. But despite the bond forming between Taro and Eri, one question lingered at the back of Taro's mind. What were this extraterrestrial's true intentions? Was its kindness genuine or just a clever ruse to gain trust? As dawn approached, bringing with it an end to their conversation for now, Taro knew that he had reached a crossroads. He could continue down his current path, trying to survive day by day without ever looking back, or he could choose the road less traveled and see where this unexpected friendship might lead. The choice was his alone to make, but one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again now that Taro had encountered Eri. Taro's decision was made the moment he realized that his life could change for better or worse. He chose to embrace this new connection with Eri, hoping it would bring him some semblance of stability and a chance at a brighter future. As days turned into weeks, Taro found himself spending more time with Eri than ever before. The alien being continued sharing its knowledge about the universe while teaching Taro various skills that could help him survive on his own terms rather than just scraping by each day. One such skill was creating makeshift tools from scrap materials, something that seemed impossible to Taro at first but became second nature after practicing under Eri's guidance. Another lesson involved learning how to purify water and grow simple plants in small spaces, which would not only provide him with clean drinking water but also a source of food. Eager to learn as much as he could, Taro dedicated himself wholeheartedly to these new pursuits. He began spending his days scavenging for materials that Eri had pointed out might be useful, and practicing the techniques it taught him in secret, away from prying eyes among other homeless individuals who still viewed him with suspicion. As time passed, Taro noticed subtle changes within himself. His confidence grew as he mastered these new skills, transforming his outlook on life from one of mere survival to a desire for growth and improvement. The weight of regret that had burdened him since losing Shinji began to lift slowly, replaced by hope for the future. But while Eri's teachings brought Taro closer than ever before to envisioning an escape route out of homelessness, there was still much uncertainty surrounding this extraterrestrial being itself. Despite their bond and shared knowledge, Taro couldn't shake off his initial doubts about Eri's true intentions, a nagging fear that lingered in the back of his mind. One evening as they sat together by another makeshift fire pit, this time with tools and plants scattered around them, Taro decided to confront this lingering doubt. "Eri," he asked hesitantly, "why are you helping me? You're from a completely different world. Why get involved in my problems?" Eri's response was immediate yet measured. "I have witnessed the strength of your spirit despite being trapped by circumstances beyond your control. I believe that every sentient being deserves an opportunity to grow and thrive, regardless of their origin or situation. Taro felt his heart swell with gratitude for this alien friend who seemed so human in its compassion, but he couldn't help but wonder if there was more to Erie's story, something it wasn't sharing yet. As the night wore on and they continued discussing various topics from both worlds, Taro realized that while trust could be a slow process, embracing uncertainty might ultimately lead him down the path toward true freedom and happiness, and so he chose not only to accept this new friendship but also to face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and an open heart. Though with each passing day, Taro's resolve grew stronger, until one fateful morning when everything changed forever. As the sun rose on what would be Taro's final day, he felt a sense of unease that had been building up inside him for weeks. It wasn't just his lingering doubts about Eri, it was something deeper, an intuition that told him this extraterrestrial being held secrets far darker than he could ever imagine. Despite the fear gnawing at his heart, Taro decided to confront these feelings head-on during their daily meeting spot in an abandoned alleyway. Eri, he began tentatively, I've been thinking, what if your intentions aren't as pure as you claim? For a moment, Eri's expression remained unreadable, but then something shifted subtly beneath its alien facade. A wicked smile slowly spread across the being's face. You're finally catching on, Taro, it said in a voice that sent shivers down his spine. I've been manipulating your life for far longer than you realize, and soon this world will be mine. Taro tried to step back but found himself rooted to the spot as Eri began revealing its true nature, how it had observed humanity from afar, studying their weaknesses and strengths with cold precision. The revelation was too much for Taro's fragile human mind. He stumbled backward, his thoughts racing wildly while he struggled to comprehend this betrayal of trust on such a cosmic scale. Eri continued speaking, each word dripping with malice as it described its ultimate plan, using the skills it had taught Taro to infiltrate and take control of key resources across the city, all in preparation for an invasion that would leave Earth defenseless against extraterrestrial tyranny. As Eri's sinister monologue drew to a close, something strange began happening within Taro. His body felt heavy with exhaustion despite having slept well the night before. His limbs seemed unresponsive and numb. In a final desperate attempt to stop this alien menace, Taro lunged at Eri, but it was too late. With an eerie laugh, Eri reached out and touched him, injecting its dark energy into Taro's veins like venom from a snake. Taro felt himself slipping away as his life force ebbed out of him, leaving only one thought. He had failed to protect Shinji's memory by falling for this alien charade. The pain was too much. It overwhelmed every fiber of his being until everything went black. When Taro opened his eyes again, the world around him had changed completely. He found himself staring at Eri through a new set of eyes. Or rather, no eyes at all. He realized that he now inhabited an empty shell devoid of life and consciousness. The last thing Taro saw was Eri's triumphant smile as it began to transform his body into its own form, taking over completely. With one final gasp for breath, the essence of who Taro once was vanished forever, consumed by darkness and despair in a world now under the iron grip of an evil force from beyond the stars. And so Eri's sinister reign had begun. In the days following Eri's takeover of Taro's body, a subtle yet palpable shift began to manifest within him. No longer was he the compassionate friend who had once endeared himself to those in need. Instead, an insidious darkness seeped through his every action. The homeless community remained blissfully unaware that their beloved savior had become something sinister, but they soon felt a growing sense of unease as Taro's behavior began to change. What started off as small inconveniences quickly escalated into outright malevolence. At first it was almost imperceptible. Resources went missing and whispers spread through the community about who might be responsible, but before long those whispers turned into gasps of terror as Taro's actions grew bolder. Thefts became more brazen. Assaults on fellow homeless individuals began to occur, and even a few murders were pinned on him. The once peaceful gathering spots where people shared what little food they had now filled with fear. Some tried to confront Taro about his behavior, but something unsettling in his eyes made them hesitate. An emptiness that was no longer human. As the weeks turned into months and the death toll rose, a palpable sense of dread settled over the city's homeless population. They began to organize self-defense groups, knowing they needed to protect themselves from this new threat lurking among their own ranks. But even as Taro wreaked havoc on those around him, there was no questioning that something fundamental had changed within him. He now bore an unmistakable mark of evil in his every action and decision. and so the homeless community found itself caught between a fear for their lives and the realization that one among them had become irredeemably corrupted. As time went on, more people disappeared or fled the city altogether to escape this nightmare unfolding within its borders, leaving behind only whispers of what might have been and tales passed down through generations about an otherworldly menace that consumed a community from within. As the years passed, the once thriving homeless community dwindled to a mere shadow of its former self. Fear and despair had driven many away, leaving only those too weak or desperate to leave behind their last vestiges of hope. Taro himself disappeared without a trace. His name became synonymous with terror, whispered in hushed tones among those who remained. Theories abounded about what might have happened to him. Some claimed they saw shadowy figures lurking around the city's outskirts, while others spoke of an unearthly power that consumed him whole. But one thing was certain: Taro had vanished into thin air, leaving behind a legacy of pain and suffering that would haunt generations to come. The event became etched in the collective memory of those who remained, a cautionary tale about trusting strangers with unknown motives. As new waves of homeless people arrived in search of solace or refuge, they too heard stories of Taro's malevolence from their elders. These newcomers learned quickly that this was one community where trust should be earned over time and not given freely to those who appeared helpful at first glance. And so the story of Taro became a local legend, passed down through generations as a warning against blindly trusting others, especially when they come bearing promises too good or bad to be true. It served as a grim reminder that even in the darkest corners of society, there are always those who lurk with sinister intent. In the end, it was not just Taro whose fate had been sealed by his encounter with Eri, but also every soul caught within the ripple effects of this cosmic betrayal. A lesson emerged from their collective suffering. Never trust an alien when they promise good things. For in a world where darkness can masquerade as light and evil lurk behind even the most innocent faces, it is our vigilance that keeps us safe, not blind faith, nor hasty decisions made on promises too enticing to be true.
Second anomaly reported within 2 years. Previous one logged near Seoul. Same pattern. Embedded subject. Emotional entanglement. Behavioral distortions only detected at late stage. We still don't know if the first subject was taken or turned. This one's quieter, but the signals are lining again. Advise containment, not contact.